speed compared with the short half-mile closed tracks of those days. Since that time, a quarter of a century ago, the speeds have kept increasing with new designs, new rubber compounds, and better handling qualities. The cars are nudging that 200-mile-an-hour mark. For instance, today's pole sitter, Cale Yarborough, set a new record for this race at 196.635 in qualifying. Today, 39 other drivers will be challenging Cale in hopes of capturing the Firecracker 400. So things will be popping today at Daytona. In the early days of stock car racing in the South, the scene of action was the hard-packed sand of Daytona Beach. Then, in the late 50s, a big change occurred. A new super speedway was built, a 2.5-mile high-bank oval. It was called the Daytona International Speedway, and it changed the face of racing. It has now become a tradition in America to come to the Daytona International Speedway to celebrate the 4th of July weekend in one of the classic stock car races in our country, the Firecracker 400. You can expect heat, you can expect noise, you certainly can expect speed, and the fans love every moment of it. Hi, I'm Bill Fleming, welcoming you to this 25th annual Firecracker 400. We're glad you could join us for this birthday celebration, the silver anniversary race. And I think it's going to be something special because Cale Yarborough went out the other day and set a new all-time Firecracker qualifying speed, so it'll be a hot race today. I think anytime you have a birthday, it's fun to reminisce a little bit, and we'd like to do that with our racing expert, Sam Posey. Sam, what was your impression when you first saw this awesome speedway?
Well, Bill, I think like anyone who comes here for the first time, I was just amazed by the size and scale of the place. Can you imagine what it was like 25 years ago when they were first carving the place out of the Florida swampland? I mean, then as now, the bankings are just so extraordinary. You have to almost see them here to believe them. The track really became a self-fulfilling prophecy. It was a vision of what stock car racing, which was then in its infancy, could become and has become. And it's nice that the man that had that vision, Bill France, he and his family, after a quarter of a century, still run and control this place.
And I think it's interesting to know that they've set all kinds of records up to this race as far as attendance is concerned, and this will be the biggest attendance ever for a Firecracker race. Now, the man who's going to be very hot today is our man in the pits, the editor of National Speed Sport News, Chris Economaki. Let's join him for a moment.
Well, Bill, there is nostalgia, and it is an anniversary, but one thing is the same. The sun, burning down on this racetrack, intense heat, hotter than in the past, and more meaningful in the past because of rule changes. To slow the cars down, they've restricted the flow of air to the engines to where hot air comes in now rather than fresh, cool air. This means a big heat buildup in the car, and drivers are concerned about burning their feet on the floorboards, becoming overcome by the heat. They've got things to drink in the car, ice packs for their necks, cool suits, and all other devices to stay cool during the course of the race. And it could change the driving style. Because of the great heat buildup in the cars, they're not going to be able to stay one behind the other in the draft for too long, otherwise the engines will overheat. So they'll have to dart out in the fresh air every now and then. And what we're going to see today is a different kind of Firecracker 400.
Joining us for the first time on our racing team is Terry Blair, who has been at the Daytona International Speedway all week doing feature stories. Let's join her for a moment.
Bill, this is my first race here in Daytona, and I'm really looking forward to it, along with 45,000 other people here today. I've already been out and around Daytona on this Firecracker 400 weekend, and so far it's been exciting. We're going to show you a little bit of that. I'll also be showing you behind the scenes on and off the track, and if you've never been to Daytona on this race weekend, I think you're in store for a surprise.
Well, there's a great view of this tremendous crowd on hand here today for the start of the Firecracker 400. All 40 cars are started. They are on the track. They're on the pace lap right now, and we have two cameras mounted inside of car number 98, Joe Ruttman. There's the camera right behind him. You can see Cale Yarborough, the pole sitter, in car number 28, right off his left shoulder, following the pace car. There's the camera inside to get a good look at Joe Ruttman. Now let's set the field. 20 rows of two, 40 starters. Car number 28 is Cale Yarborough, who was the pole sitter in a record-setting speed of 196.6. Then Joe Ruttman on the outside of him in car number 98. In row 2 is Terry Labonte, car number 44. Next to him is Benny Parsons in 55. Row 3, Jeff Bodine, car number 88, the Rookie of the Year last year. And Ricky Rudd, car number 3, is next to him. Row 4, Dale Earnhardt in 15 and Buddy Baker in 21 next to him. Row 5, Neil Bonnet, won here in 79 in the Cracker race. Next to him, Ron Bouchard, third a year ago in 47. Row 6, Tim Richmond, car number 27, and Dick Brooks in 90 outside of him, just pulling up. Row 7, Bobby Allison, the leader of the Point Derby this year in the Grand National Circuit. He won here a year ago, and Bill Elliott in car number 9 finished second to him by half a car length. And back in row 8 is David Pearson, who has won 5 Firecracker races. And back in row 12 is Dale Waltrip. In 15 is Richard Petty. We'll keep our eyes on them. We're going to get the green flag, and we'll see the start from inside Joe Ruttman's car. And here they come. The green flag is out. Cale Yarborough, forward on, trying to get to that first turn early. Right outside of him, Joe Ruttman, and cooling up very quickly. Right behind the leader, Cale Yarborough, car number 44, Terry Labonte. How's the start, Sam Posey?
Well, Bill, Joe Ruttman has just moved into the lead there. He's the man carrying our camera car. I should say that to these men, 400 miles here on a super speedway is just a sprint, despite the heat that Chris spoke about earlier. There is the view from the car leading the Firecracker 400.
Richard Petty had a little bit of trouble on the start. He went up and high on the outside and has dropped back even farther from his starting position, which was back in the 15th row. Now as they come around for this first time around of 160 laps, it's Joe Ruttman out in front. And everybody standing as they do traditionally for the start of a big race here at Daytona.
Well, there's the lookout, the back of Joe Ruttman's car at Harry Gant.
Benny Parsons is right next to him.
I'm sorry, Benny Parsons. And, Bill, the important thing, look at how low the spoiler is there on Joe Ruttman's car. That's a piece of aluminum you see right in the middle of the screen. He is purposely running a very low spoiler here in hopes of getting more top speed out of his car. He's very worried about this, what this might mean to him in the handling in the turns, especially as the race wears on.
And now, going back just a little bit farther is Benny Parsons, and scooting up on the inside is Cale Yarborough. So Yarborough just slid right in there into the second position going into turn 4, following Joe Ruttman, and Benny Parsons in car number 55 has dropped back a little bit. They're pretty well strung out now. A very, very good and clean start. Car number 21 is Buddy Baker, running in 4th place and very smoothly, I might add, as they go into turn 1 in lap number 3. And I am surprised, quite frankly, that Cale Yarborough enabled Joe Ruttman to go in there in the lead just out of turn 1 and into turn 2 of the first lap.
I'm surprised too, Bill, but now let's check this straightaway speed situation. Ruttman leading there as Cale makes a move on the inside. So Ruttman's straightaway speed is certainly not decisive. He can be drafted despite that smaller spoiler.
And look who benefited from the draft. Benny Parsons moving ahead of Joe Ruttman. So the leader now is Cale Yarborough, who is our pole sitter at a record speed of 196.635, almost 2 miles an hour faster than the old record set by Jeff Bodine. So they're tucked in there very closely as Cale Yarborough, Benny Parsons, and Joe Ruttman, and then Buddy Baker. Those are the first 4 cars. So it's been a very good and a hot start here for the 25th running of the Firecracker 400. We'll be back in just a moment. The cars are all tightly bunched during this early going in the race. We're on lap number 5. And there goes Benny Parsons in car number 55. Joe Ruttman tucked in behind him in 98. And Cale Yarborough loses the lead and drops all the way back to 3rd. Everybody trying to stay competitive here.
Yeah, they're running very hard, Bill. Fortunately, with no accident early in the going here, don't let the apparent smoothness of their maneuvers fool you. That air turbulence around the cars makes driving very hard. Making a move now on Cale Yarborough to try to get into 3rd place is Buddy Baker, and he squeezes him off in that upper turn. And so Buddy Baker, the 3rd car there, has moved ahead of Cale Yarborough. They're following Benny Parsons and Joe Ruttman. Now, one interesting thing, I think, would be to see what it's like to be out on that track in the view of the driver. And when the cars come by here this next time, we're going to follow Joe Ruttman in his car with our 2 cameras to see exactly what it is like. So as the cars come around, Joe is down low now. He is currently in 3rd place. Now dropping a little bit farther back. Now he moves into the slot. That'll be a good place to view. Well, Bill, as he comes up here now to start the lap, as you said, he is running low. Now remember, these drivers are traveling. He's traveling about 200 miles an hour here. If he backs off anywhere, it's right there. Then he rolls right back into the throttle. Watch him steering the car. That means the back of the car is sliding, I think, more than he wanted it to, Bill. We talked with Joe Ruttman before the start. He hoped that that small spoiler would not give him too much trouble in the early going in the turns, but he was having to correct the slide. He's now approaching turn 3. There's the banking looming up ahead. Notice the difficulty in looking much ahead around the track here. You see the way the banking kind of is like being on the inside of a bowl there. Now he's approaching. There's a bump right there. I don't know if you notice his hands moving suddenly on the wheel. There's a bump as you come off of turn 4 that can make the cars very unstable there for a moment.
Parsons is the leader, and right behind him is Buddy Baker, then Joe Ruttman. And let's give you a rundown on the other cars right now. Ron Bouchard is currently in 4th place, then Dick Brooks in car number 90, then Ricky Rudd, then Dale Earnhardt, and then in car number 27 is Tim Richmond.
Well, Bill, you'll notice that Cale Yarborough has been slipping back, and he seems to be prepared to head for the pits. I don't know what it might be, whether the heat is affecting the engine. I just hope it isn't a harbinger of things to come today, that the heat is going to cause a lot of reliability problems.
Well, there's been a lot of speculation on that, but strangely enough, statistically speaking, only 4 times in the history of the Firecracker race, and there have been 24 previous ones, has the pole sitter won this race. So apparently that's not the place to start. And there's a car that has blown an engine, Buddy Arrington in car number 67, and that brings out the first yellow caution flag of the day. Now we understand that Chris Economaki is in the pits with Cale Yarborough.
I'm down here now with Cale Yarborough. Cale, come on out here in the sunshine with me for a second. It's a short firecracker for you. What seems to be the trouble?
Well, something got under the belt, oil pump belt, and kicked the oil pump off, which just let the bearings freeze up and blew the engine.
Oh, that's a tough break. Cale, before this day is out, there are probably going to be calls for relief. Might you be available?
If they call me, I'll be in Sardis, South Carolina. I'm headed home.
Okay, Cale Yarborough out of the race and headed home.
So with the yellow caution flag out, caused by the oil on the track due to the blown engine of Buddy Arrington, Benny Parsons hangs on to the lead, and we'll be back in a moment. The green flag is back out. They're racing again. 13 laps have been completed, but the pole sitter, Cale Yarborough, is out. Benny Parsons in the lead, and Dick Brooks is in second.
Dick Brooks, you will remember, had a brilliant drive here in the Daytona 500 of this year. Bill, leading for much of that race. He finished 5th in the end, but he, except for making the wrong tire selection right at the end, could very well have been the winner there, and he's showing that he has the speed again here at Daytona now as he runs second.
See that car right out in front pouring smoke out onto the track, and he's wisely pulled down onto the inside. That's Blackie Wangerin. And because he did pull down on the inside, no yellow caution flag is out. He kept the oil out of the groove. Now we've had another lead change. Dick Brooks has taken over the lead from Benny Parsons. Now when Blackie Wangerin blew, we had our camera in Joe Ruttman's car isolated to a tape machine, and it gives us a chance to get a driver's view of how to handle that incident.
It perfectly illustrates, Bill, the problem that a driver has. Now, Wangerin up there, there's the engine blowing, and in this split second, Joe has to find out whether there's oil on the track or not. He waves, which means he's backing off, which means the car behind him knows that he's backing off the throttle for a split second. This, fortunately, was a non-incident, but blown engines like this often trigger the big pileups we see in this kind of racing.
Now, Dick Brooks, car number 90, in the lead, but Buddy Baker's right behind him, and then Ron Bouchard behind him, and Benny Parsons has fallen back into 6th place, and there goes Buddy Baker into the lead for the first time today. So it's Baker, Brooks, and Ron Bouchard, who finished 3rd a year ago, currently running in 3rd place, and Dale Earnhardt has moved up into 4th place in the standings. Well, this has been a very, very fine competitive race so far.
Bill, at the hot pace that is being set early in the game here. Buddy Baker, especially, in the past, used to drive this kind of race. I'm sure you remember that. A hard charger early in the going. Then he seemed to have a complete change of mind about how you went racing. He started to hang back more in the style of Richard Petty. There goes Brooks, slingshot it by him. But today, Buddy Baker's decided to lead early in the game, sort of reverting to the way he used to run races.
You know, an interesting story is Richard Petty, who is the winningest driver of all time in Grand National racing. And the interesting thing about him is that he started on the outside of row 15. He is currently in 15th place in the standings. So he has indeed picked up about half the field. Before the race got underway, Chris Economaki had a chance to talk to this all-time great King Richard.
25 years ago, the racetrack opened. You were out there driving on the racetrack, the very first stock car race held at the Daytona International Speedway. And here you are a quarter of a century later. Can you think back to that first race and how different it is today?
Well, I know that we ran convertibles at that time, and they had a Grand National race with the hardtop cars, and then we had brought the convertibles, and we ran the convertible race, and I think I finished 3rd or 4th in a 100-mile race. And then when they started the big race, they put all the Grand Nationals in one line and all the convertibles in another. And I'd been running, I guess, probably 130 mile an hour, and the hardtops was running like 145. And I drafted onto one of those hardtops, and he sucked the motor out of it in about 6-7 laps. So I don't remember a whole lot about the first race, except that, you know, I went to the pits then, stayed in the pits, and my father was lucky enough to win after the race was over, and 3 days after that, they finally decided he won the race.
Were you scared that first day, Rich? It was the first time anybody really went fast in a stock car.
No, not really. You know, I was just getting started. I was 21 or 22 years old, and, you know, I came in here, and all you could see was the racetrack, had a little fence around it, a few grandstands, no fences inside, no garage here, and this kind of stuff. And, you know, any place I went was new to me, so Daytona was just another racetrack. And some of the boys that had run for years and years on the short tracks never adapted to the super speedways. And me, I didn't know any better. I jumped out there and started running, and you know, I didn't care whether we run 130 or 200 mile an hour. I was ready to go.
Richard always has been ready to go, and 9 of his Grand National wins have been here at Daytona. 2 Firecrackers he's won, but the last one was 6 years ago. The leader, Dick Brooks, who hasn't had a very good start in the 80s, who's trying to make a comeback today. We are on lap number 30, 130 laps to go, and 9 different drivers have had a shot at the lead in this Firecracker 400. Currently, it's Dale Earnhardt, followed by Dick Brooks, then Buddy Baker, Terry Labonte, and Bobby Allison. A word here on Dale Earnhardt, the Rookie of the Year in '79. He was the Grand National Champion in 1980. That's the first time that a driver ever won those 2 awards in consecutive years, and Earnhardt hadn't even reached the age of 30.
Bill, of course, the pole sitter, Cale Yarborough, went out on lap 5 with engine problems.
And keep your eye on Bobby Allison. He is now moving into 3rd place. Car number 22, the light-colored car. He's following Dick Brooks. He tried to get in there on the draft, but he did move into 3rd. He squeezed off Buddy Baker. So there is Bobby Allison, the current point leader, and also the defending Cracker champion.
Yeah, the man who won both races that were held at Daytona last year was Bobby Allison. Both the big races. There he is running 3rd.
And might be getting 2nd because they're going to go right by Dick Brooks. And Earnhardt's right in front of him. Then Bobby Allison, and Dick Brooks is running in 3rd.
And you notice that Allison went in low under Brooks, and the car was carried back up to the banking. Bill, I'm surprised to see Bobby Allison put on such a charge at this point because of his struggle in the points chase against Darrell Waltrip. He has to be absolutely sure that he finishes these races. Surprised to see him go so hard so early.
And in 10th place in the car right here is Joe Ruttman. You can see the 9 cars ahead of him there. And Joe, who started on the outside of the first row, has dropped back a little bit, but I think the reason for it was well pointed out by our expert, Sam Posey.
Well, Bill, I think something maybe...
Is it something in the handling of the car?
No.
What rubbed his glasses there? Excuse me, Sam. Bobby Allison has taken the lead now from Dale Earnhardt. Now, let's go back to Ruttman's case.
Ruttman pulled way down into the, away from the racing groove. I started to see cars passing it very fast. I was afraid of that. There he is. Something has happened to Joe, Bill. That's a shame. You know, as we took that shot of him inside, I started to think those cars are going by him way too fast. That's what it looks to a man who's losing the race, basically, coming into the pits. I've seen that myself. Bill, it's the most discouraging sight to see the other cars going on with the race, and you can't. You come in under no power at all into the pits. He has got to be extremely discouraged. There you see the car, and he's going to pull it right into the garage. Not even going to go to his pit. That's it. And that's a shame.
So Joe Ruttman goes to the garage area, and I'm sure Chris Economaki will go over there. Look at all that dirt and grime on the windshield. All right, back to racing. Bobby Allison in the lead. Dale Earnhardt is in 2nd. Dick Brooks is in 3rd, and Buddy Baker is in 4th, trying to make a move there on the inside to get ahead of Brooks, and he does. So the first 3 cars are Allison, Earnhardt, and Buddy Baker.
Think of what a chess game the thing really is out there, Bill. You have to consider not only the handling of your own car and your own expectations, but the almost dozen other cars that are immediately around you. So the move that you set up is going to affect them, and what they do is going to affect you. It's pretty complicated stuff.
At the end of 33 laps, Dale Earnhardt has retaken the lead. Buddy Baker has moved into 2nd. Bobby Allison has dropped to 3rd. Dick Brooks is 4th. And Terry Labonte is 5th. We'll be back in a moment. Buddy Baker in car number 21, who has never won the Firecracker 400, but has won the Daytona 500, is in the lead right now in car number 21. With 100 miles completed, 300 miles to go, we have had some 15 different lead changes with 9 different drivers. How about that for competitiveness? One driver who did lead part of the race, and that is Joe Ruttman, but he's out of it right now. And let's get the story from Chris Economaki.
I'm down there at Joe Ruttman's truck where he's changed into his civilian clothes. You got your rag there, Joe. How hot was it in the car?
Well, Chris, it was awful warm, but not to the extent that I thought it would be. We'd made some changes in the car, and we ducked some fresh air in the car before we started the race. We determined that it would be extremely warm inside the car. And
Californians always say hot is warm.
Well, it's not as hot as you think. I expected the conditions to be worse than what they were, so I don't think the heat on the driver is going to be any major effect in the outcome of the race.
What happened to your car?
Chris, we don't really know. Buddy felt that maybe the cam broke, which is based on the new rules, so we won't know until Wednesday morning when we get a chance to tear the motor down to determine exactly what actually functioned, what the valve function was first.
Thanks so much for the help with the camera. It was great, Joe Ruttman. And back to you, Bill Fleming.
So Joe Ruttman, who was the second fastest qualifier and who finished dead last a year ago, who had hoped to win this race today, is out of the race with some kind of mechanical failure. Now, he alluded to something about the new rules, and I think it's important to back and document that with what the new rules are. In other words, why would he say we think it's because of the new rules?
Well, there are 2 reasons, Bill. First of all, the old mushroom-style valve lifters are no longer allowed. Part of the reasoning here is to lower the revs a little bit. These old valve lifters allowed higher revs. With lower revs, the races could be a little bit run at the lower speeds. And secondly, and most importantly, the air induction at the rear of the hood now has been outlawed. And this is the heat buildup that I think Joe was talking about. The result, of course, is maybe less reliability.
In the lead right now is Buddy Baker. Right behind him is Dale Earnhardt. And Dick Brooks in car number 90 is right behind him. Then comes Bobby Allison, who won the race a year ago. Then we have Terry Labonte and Ron Bouchard. Car number 55 is Benny Parsons, who had the lead at one time and for quite a while. And then Tim Richmond has moved up into 8th place in car number 27 as they pass a slower car on the back stretch. Actually, I'm surprised. We still have 34 of 40 cars running, and we have just passed the 100-mile mark, so that's pretty good on this very hot day, but a lot can happen in 300 miles.
Well, one of the things that might happen that the drivers are worried about for the first time in many, many races is that the tires might actually blister it and prove to be a problem. If it is very hot on the surface, and I'm not talking about the heat in the cockpit, but if it's hot on the racing surface, there's some fear that the tires might blister, that they might become overly convex, and then they would chunk.
Buddy Baker, who is in the lead right now, has a long and colorful history of racing, including his father, Elsie Baker, who was one of the early stock car drivers. And we got to reminiscing before the race with Chris Economaki and Buddy.
You've made many a visit to Daytona, Buddy. Is there one memorable moment that sticks in your mind about this racetrack?
Oh, yeah. When I won the 500 here, I'd been so close on 6 or 7 different occasions, and then to win the race, I feel like is the Super Bowl of our type of racing. And no matter whatever happens here, that'll always remain the high point of the times that I've been to Daytona.
And Dick Brooks, you see there, putting a move on Buddy Baker, forcing the big guy back into 2nd place. I say a big guy. He is big. He's 6'5", 225 pounds. And off the track, a big old friendly bear.
Yeah, and Bill, over the years, quite a few newcomers to NASCAR racing thought he might be like that on the track and have found out otherwise. He's a very tough customer. He has not had a good season, though, this year. Very bad season, in fact, despite the fact that he drives for the Wood Brothers, one of the best teams in NASCAR.
So the cars whip by to complete lap number 48. And there goes Buddy Baker, sliding by Dick Brooks once again into 1st place. Brooks in 2nd. Ron Bouchard is in 3rd. Bobby Allison is in 4th place. And Dale Earnhardt, who had the lead just moments ago, has slid all the way back into 5th. Terry Blair back at the Daytona International Speedway, where a record crowd has turned out for this silver anniversary Firecracker 400 stock car race, and they are seeing some kind of action here. On the track right now is Buddy Baker in car number 21 in the lead. He has never won a Firecracker 400 race, although he has won the Daytona 500. Right behind him is Ron Bouchard in car number 47. Dale Earnhardt is running in third place, and Benny Parsons is running in fourth, and we have 20 laps to go. Now, to recap the day briefly, Cale Yarborough, the pole sitter, went out on the fifth lap with engine trouble. Then Joe Rudman, who was second fastest qualifier, went out on lap 30. He also had an engine problem, overheating. Back on lap 79, a most significant mishap occurred in turn 3.
Bill, Dick Brooks there on the left got into the wall, and then Petty and Allison became involved in just the sort of chain reaction so typical of this kind of racing. And Petty, for that awful moment there, was very vulnerable to being T-boned.
Fortunately, nobody was hurt in that incident, but only Allison was able to get back racing after extensive body sheet metal repairs to his car. So, with 19 laps to go, it is Buddy Baker trying to capture his first Firecracker race. And we'll Buddy Baker, Ron Bouchard, and Dale Earnhardt. Those are the first three cars in your picture right now as we're coming down with just 18 laps to go. It's been a day that has been hot on the drivers. It's been hot on tires. We've had a lot of tire trouble today. Tires blistering. In fact, that's what triggered the accident of Dick Brooks. And look at this. Ron Bouchard is pulled right alongside of Buddy Baker, and Buddy is not going to let him come through there. Can he hold him off? That's the big question as they come down the main chute. They are side by side here, and Bouchard takes the lead.
It's not that far from the end of the race, Bill, and I think you can assume that some of these maneuvers that we're starting to see here may be practice maneuvers for what could be done on the last lap. They're trying to feel each other out, get a feel for what capabilities the other drivers' cars have.
Ron Bouchard has not won a race this year, has one win on the Grand National Circuit in 66 attempts. He's currently ranked 19th in the Cup point standings, comes from Pittsburgh, Massachusetts, and is 34 years old. So this would be a great win for him, but Buddy Baker has just moved ahead of him again, and he's going to be a tough guy to stay in front of. Once you get in front of him, Buddy seems to have that uncanny ability of knowing exactly where the groove is, and he moves ahead once again.
Now, Ron Bouchard has a true Massachusetts accent, Bill, so you've got two Southerners out there and one man from Massachusetts, and Bouchard, however, is really cut from the same mold of cloth as the classic NASCAR drivers. He's a calculating man. He stays very, very cool under fire, and even though he is in many ways the least experienced of this leading trio, don't count him out when it comes to the finish.
Well, it's been a very fast race, 164.5 miles an hour at 140 laps with 20 laps to go. That's only 9 miles an hour under the all-time record set in 1980 by Bobby Allison. So it's Buddy Baker in the lead, and Ron Bouchard right behind him. Then comes Dale Earnhardt, and Terry Labonte has moved up into fourth place ahead of Benny Parsons. We could have really some kind of a finish here. Well, it's been a hot day. It always is on the 4th of July weekend. Terry Blair has made some interesting observations about the heat.
Not everyone spends their Daytona Firecracker 400 weekend on land. Some people spend it on the water. Hello there. What are you doing this Firecracker 400 weekend?
Watching the races. What are you doing?
You know, I don't know. I'm asking myself the same question. Why aren't you at the track?
Well, it's a lot cooler here.
Well, I'm headed there right now. You have a nice weekend.
You too.
Yeah. Okay, bye-bye. It's 90 degrees out here on the infield, and it seems a lot hotter with the humidity. But we still don't have to put up with anything like the drivers. The drivers have to cope with that 140-degree heat and humidity. They also have to worry about dehydration. And as you can see in the infield, they don't worry about dehydration at all. But they still have to cope with the heat. Woo!
Car number 21, Buddy Baker, in the lead. He is closely followed by Ron Bouchard, who finished third a year ago. And that is Terry Labonte, car number 44, who has moved ahead of Benny Parsons. In fact, Benny Parsons has slowed way down. So it may boil down to those three cars, except there is one more car in there that we ought to document, and that is Dale Earnhardt, who does still have a chance. He's running fifth on the track.
It looks as if Bouchard is slingshotting Baker for a pass.
And there goes Ron Bouchard into the lead, just as we mentioned it, as Buddy Baker goes up high, and capitalizing on that move was Terry Labonte right behind Bouchard, and there's Earnhardt smoking. Well, that could mean curtains for Dale Earnhardt, who's run a strong race here today. So as we get down to the closing moments of this race, things could really heat up. With 12 laps to go, those 4 cars are running almost as a diamond, but one of those cars, car number 9, Bill Elliott, is a lap down. 3 of them are very much in contention. The leader, of course, Ron Bouchard, car number 47. Terry Labonte is in second place, and Buddy Baker is back there in third, but that number 9 car is Bill Elliott. As I mentioned, he is 1 lap down.
First, Bill, when you get to this point in the race, each of the drivers in contention starting to figure out what are they going to do as they come into that last lap. And Buddy Baker told me back at Darlington that his thought process as he approaches the last laps is to start by trying to eliminate from his mind strategies that he thinks will not work, leaving him hopefully with one that will. Incidentally, the new engine rules enacted just before this race seem to have given Buddy and his team kind of a new lease on life. He's running awfully well.
And he's moving up very quickly on Ron Bouchard and takes the lead. And Terry Labonte in car number 44 is trying to go to slipstream in there. And he, too, slingshots past Ron Bouchard. Boy, the last 10 laps of this race should really be something. Keep in mind that the 4th car in that line is Bill Elliott, a lap down. And there is Labonte putting a move on Baker, and Bouchard, again, follows in the slipstream, and he's going to try to take second place.
Well, they're all trying these moves, Bill, and trying to catalog in their mind what is working, what isn't working, so they'll know what they're going to do on that last lap.
With 10 laps to go, or 25 miles, it's Terry Labonte, Buddy Baker, Ron Bouchard, Jeff Bodine, and car number 2, Morgan Shepherd, has moved into 5th place in the standings. We'll be back for more of the Firecracker in a moment. Terry Labonte, a native Texan who now lives in North Carolina, and car number 44 has the lead. If he can keep it hung together here and keep off the challenge of Buddy Baker right behind him, and Ron Bouchard in the yellow car, who is right behind Baker, Terry Labonte will have won his 2nd Grand National race. And I think it's a great tribute to the fact that Terry Labonte's pit crew, headed up by Dale Inman, who was the cousin of Richard Petty and who has something like 182 Grand National wins, has done such a superb job today, Sam Posey.
Yeah, Dale Inman is such a terrific person, as is Terry Labonte. I think these two men who are not given to doing a lot of talking, but they work together beautifully. Now, Labonte earlier was able to make his break for the lead, Bill, as you remember, in traffic, and there's a lot of traffic ahead. He may be able to duplicate that maneuver, or he may not.
5 laps to go for Terry Labonte. Now, let's make a little speculation here on the fuel situation, Sam.
I think they're okay.
They're all right?
Yeah, I think they can go the whole way, but you never know. The pace has been hot in terms of weather, but also hot in terms of average speed. I think they're okay. I'd be more worried about the tires. There have been several blistered tires during the race, and at the pace they're going right now could produce another one.
Okay, they pitted on lap 121. They would have to go 160, so that would mean that they would have to go 39 laps. Buddy Baker pitted on 124, so he has a little bit of an advantage. And lap 123 was Roy Bouchard. So I guess if anybody really had a problem with the fuel, it would be Terry Labonte, who has had to go 3 more laps than the others on the present fuel.
Good point, and he's had to go faster because when he left the pit after his last stop, he had trouble getting the car out of the pits. He lost a lot of ground, and he has had to absolutely stand on it ever since. He's been the fastest car on the track for the last 20 minutes or so.
I think it's really interesting to, the drivers talked about this race before it got underway, and everybody wants to win the Firecracker. Of course, they want to win the Daytona 500 too, but the Firecracker is such a big thing with them. And neither of these two, the leaders, has won it. Here comes Dale Earnhardt coasting into the pits, so he's going to just remove himself from the competition. He was running 3rd or 4th right in that group, and here comes Darrell Waltrip into the pits. So the attrition is starting to take its toll here with the heat as we're coming down to the final 3 laps. Waltrip coming in. He has not been competitive today. The former Grand National champion twice and the defending Grand National champion.
Well, from the looks of it, Labonte is unable to shake Buddy Baker, Bill. This could be the kind of generic, exciting NASCAR finish we've all come to almost expect. I might say that, people do expect these races to be close. It's still amazing to me that they are after all of the things that can happen in 400 miles.
And there will will be 2 laps to go as Labonte has flashed the signal. All he has to do is go 5 miles ahead of Buddy Baker. That is going to ask something from him. All right, Chris, do you have a report on the fuel?
Well, Jeff Bodine just stopped for a splash of gas, and it may be the fuel that brought Dale Earnhardt to the pits. I'm in Buddy Baker's pit right now. They say they have their fingers crossed as to whether or not they'll be able to make it. Back to you, Bill.
Well, if they have their fingers crossed, what about Labonte?
Well, you know, that's going to be real trouble for Labonte. What Chris says is right.
And here they come around turn 4. And it is Buddy Baker moving up fast on Labonte. Labonte is dropping way back. Sam, that can only mean one thing. He must be out of fuel. Look how far back he's gone.
Oh, yeah, Terry just slowed. Absolutely. Look, another car passing him there. Now, I tell you, you can't call this bad luck exactly. It's something that he and his crew chief, Dale Inman, are really going to talk about for a long time.
Well, we thought heat would be the major factor. It turns out the fuel is.
Incredible, so that's what it cost him, that flat-out running that brought him into the lead. Probably made the difference between his being able to finish and not finish. That is incredible, but of course it catapults Buddy Baker into an absolutely clear lead. Bill, he's unthreatened by anyone at this point.
So Buddy Baker, who has yet to win the Firecracker 400, looks like he is going to come in if he can keep it together.
And this would be there. There it is.
Checkered flag for Buddy Baker. And there's a big puff of smoke down that main straightaway. Somebody blew. But it's not going to bother Buddy Baker. He officially has come across the finish line with the checkered flag.
Have a chance to win. Waiting to see
What an amazing last lap. It proves one thing, that until you come by and get that checkered flag, boy, you just can't let up a second. And I'm sure it wasn't anything that Terry Labonte had any control over, Sam.
No, it was the hard running that did him in. I was certainly wrong about that. I thought he had at least a lap or two margin, but when you have to run absolutely flat out to catch up that way, you're using the gas. And Buddy Baker was able to slipstream, to draft, right to the end and to victory.
Here's Labonte just limping on in.
What a crushing development for him, because he was the fastest car on the track all during the vital last section of the entire race, Bill.
100 at Talladega.
So, 42-year-old Buddy Baker is the winner, and he'll make a welcome trip to victory lane. An interesting fact is that on this 25th birthday of the Firecracker race, Buddy Baker is celebrating his 25th year of Grand National racing. And after 62 races on the Grand National circuit without a victory, he finally gets this first one since Talladega in 1980. And here is that dramatic moment, a little over 1 lap from the finish.
Well, this must have been where Labonte knew he'd run out of gas, Bill. Look at him. He pulled down out of the racing groove and let Buddy Baker go on to take the win.
So, let's go down to victory lane. And Chris Economaki.
Well, congratulations, buddy. What kind of shape are you in?
Well, it was a little hot. I had to run pretty hard at the end there. Terry Labonte was running well, but I gave the February race away by leading the last lap, and I was almost certain I wasn't going to be in that spot again. And when Terry was happy to lead, I was happy to run second and keep the radiator cool, and I could pass him in the corners, I think. I did all day. Most of the cars that I passed was in the corner, and just a great race car. And I'd like to thank Valvoline and all the people for sticking with me this first half of the year. It's been disastrous, but I knew it was coming, and had a guy tell me this week he didn't know whether the combination was there or not. Well, I think he knows now.
Buddy, when you went by Labonte, did you know he was out of fuel?
Did you know I was out, too? I run out down the back chute. I was looking at the next car behind me, and he was gaining quite fast. So when I crossed the start-finishing line, I was not under power.
Buddy, if Labonte had not run out of fuel, could you have beaten him?
I think so. I really do. But, you know, those ifs in racing, I'll give a bunch of them away, and I'm sure he feels that he could have won the race, but all I can say is you look who led the most laps today, and you'll see who had the better car. I just want to thank everybody that made it possible.
You winded, huh?
Huh?
You winded?
Yeah, I need to sit down a minute.
Okay, Buddy Baker's got to sit down a minute. The winner of the Firecracker 400, the 20th anniversary race, a tired man, goes for some relief. Back to you, Bill.
Buddy is obviously drained after this blistering day of racing, but I'm sure that he would agree it was well worth the effort. Now let's take a look at the final standings. Buddy Baker in first place. The man who finished second was Morgan Shepherd. It was his car that Buddy Baker saw closing in on him during that last heart-stopping final lap. David Pearson was third, Ron Bouchard was fourth, and Terry Labonte finished in fifth place, and that's how the rest of the top 10 wound up. In the other positions, significantly, Bobby Allison finished ahead of Darrell Waltrip, and, of course, Richard Petty was way down there in 33rd spot. And a quick look at the NASCAR point standings here. Bobby Allison still in the lead, but 14 races are yet to be run. So Bobby can't afford to let up any because his pursuers are right behind. This is Bill Fleming, along with Sam Posey and Chris Economaki and Terry Blair, saying so long from the Daytona International Speedway.